Good evening, and welcome to another edition of the FTTC podcast, sponsored by the Trade Federation. No matter the galaxy you're looking to swing a deal, the Trade Federation is willing to buy. We are your home for breaking news and breaking balls in the fantasy sports world. From touchdowns to tailgates, we've got it all covered with a dash of witty banter. I'm your host, Jason Stankiewicz, and today we are joined by the league's secret agent, sneaking his way up the standings, and I got to be careful not to say this too loud, the man they call Jacko. Ladies and gentlemen, on our second podcast of the week, we are doubling down with a week 10 pod performance here. Today we're joined by the league's second spookiest owner, a man quietly going about his business, leading some in the media to call him a potential silent assassin for the title. The manager of Jordy's Ghost, Mr. Jacko O'Malley. Jack, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? And what makes me the second spookiest? I got to know where that came from.
With Jordy's Ghost, you've been a big fan of the supernatural for quite some time, and unfortunately, with Mr. Spooks ahead of you, he is quite spookier. But I think you're right up there, embracing the ghost.
Yes, my team name is Spooky. Now that you mention it, for sure.
Yeah, and honestly, you're sneaking around too, just silently going about your business here. You're sitting 4-4, looking odds on to make the playoffs. What's the feeling in the Jordy's Ghost locker room right now?
I've had quite a few nibbles on Travis Kelce that I've obviously declined, and I hope I'm not second guessing those too much. But it's almost getting to the point where there's like 4 guys I have to watch and hope that they don't outscore Kelce. But I got to think about what the rest of the tight end market looks like. It's pretty bleak out there. But no, I'm feeling good. I feel like I'm in good position to make the playoffs. Yeah. We're in the middle of Thursday Night Football for those listening, and I know your team is going through some trials and tribulations right now. But so far, I'm rooting against.
Yeah, it's been a tough start.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd is having a slow start, so we love seeing that. Hopefully, they don't get too far behind. Maybe run the ball a little bit more with Joe Mixon.
Mixon's been looking good so far. He's broken a couple decent runs. I don't like that either because I'm a big Ravens guy this year with Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, and the Ravens defense. But tonight's been a killer, man. We were talking about this before the pod. I lost Mark Andrews already. Lamar Jackson, thankfully, has come back from his injury. I might as well just shotgun already. It's that kind of Thursday night. It's literally the worst thing in the world when it's a Thursday night and you know that you're like almost dead in the water already.
Yes, if your QB goes down the first quarter on Thursday night, that makes for it. Kind of ruins your weekend before it even starts.
Oh, 100%. It's pretty brutal. But I want to get back to the Travis Kelce note that you mentioned there, because we are coming up at the trade deadline. We had a great pod last night with Trevor where he discussed a lot of the wheeling and dealing that he's been doing. You've been one of the quieter managers this year. I've got you down with only 16 total moves for the year. Has there been much trade activity in the JG headquarters, or has it been relatively quiet outside of Kelce?
I had to start looking into things when my guy Damian Pierce has had kind of a disappointing season so far. But so far, no moves. I went with like the mid quarterback, like, I don't know, strategy. I did have Kirk Cousins. He went down. And I think I've had Goff and Geno Smith all year, and it's just playing matchups. And
sometimes you've been rocking the 3 quarterbacks all year.
Yeah, it makes it tough to, make any bench moves with bye weeks when you're trying to hang on to these quarterbacks and play the matchups. But, we made it work so far.
As I was researching a little bit for this pod, I stumbled on a pretty impressive nugget. Your all-time Yahoo record, I don't know if you know this or not, but your all-time Yahoo record is 181 and 119, which is a 60% winning clip.
That's pretty good.
And that's like by far the best in the league. You've got everyone else beaten by like a good 4 or 5%.
I will admit there's been some less than competitive work leagues involved with that record. I'd like to know what my overall record is for our league. I think it's pretty good. I feel like I'm perennially in the playoffs, but obviously I've never won it. But I don't know if you can break it up that way, but I'd love to know.
Yeah, I might have to take a little deeper dive into it and figure that out. I mean, have you at least won any titles in your other leagues, in your less competitive work leagues? But, I mean, with a record like that, like no, really none.
No, I was in a work league and I was undefeated up until the championship and lost and got $0 from it. That was a tough year.
Wow,
Very tough year.
wow, that's pretty crazy, man. I
Yeah,
think
it's not as good as it looks, for sure.
I, I don't know. I think it's still pretty impressive. Even in work leagues, it can be a crapshoot. But I can no other titles. I wonder if that says something. Maybe there's something in there that you got to finally win one, close the door on that.
I know. I was saying I was second guessing declining all these Kelsey trades, and that's definitely in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't make any of these moves in the previous years that would have got me over the hump. And I don't know if I'm making the same mistake or if I need to ride my horses to the end or what. But I think so far I'm having a hard time getting rid of Kelsey. I haven't taken him in the first round this year.
I mean, I don't blame you. I mean, he's been your top dog all year. Guy you obviously targeted in the draft. He fell to you, and honestly, when you have Travis Kelsey and he's performing, he's such an advantage relative to almost any other position.
Totally.
But outside of Kelsey, you've got a pretty decent roster. There's a lot of guys that have had some good years, surprising years. I mean, is there another player on your roster that you think has been kind of the guy that you consider the most successful player this year for you?
I think Pittman has kind of saved me. I went like heavy RB and got burnt with Dameon Pierce this year, but Pittman was kind of like a dark horse that has been serviceable for me as second wide receiver. And then Addison's been a pleasant surprise too. So it's always scary when you go heavy in one position because you end up with some dart throws in the later rounds that you need to pan out. So far so good.
Yeah, if you hit on one or two of those though, that can sometimes make your season. And honestly, I was just looking at Pittman's stats while you were talking about him, and I didn't realize that he's had double digits like 5 straight weeks now. The man, he's been pretty solid.
Yeah, I was actually excited when what's his name, Anthony Richardson went down because Minshew came in and I think they're throwing the ball a lot more than they would be with the rookie, especially the rookie like Richardson. So I think that was kind of an unexpected boon for him.
Now, we were talking a little bit about the 3 quarterbacks too. I mean, has there been, any strategy other than just trying to pick the best matchup that he got there? Or, how are you approaching that on a week-to-week basis?
I think it kind of started with the draft. Like I didn't want this. This was not like a strategy I had, but I saw a lot of the quarterbacks that I was actually interested in fly off the board. And by the end of the draft, I'm like, I just need to play the matchups with some of these mid quarterbacks and kind of hope I find one that rises to the top. And Cousins was that guy for me briefly, and then kind of right when he was getting it going, obviously he went down with the Achilles. So I don't know. Gino burnt me, and I ended up doing the shotgun, and I think I'm just going to be doing that dance with Goff and Gino. I mean, I've been checking the waiver wire, and it's not good. So
it's pretty bleak. It's pretty bleak out there. It's been a pretty sharp year, as evidenced by the standings and the amount of parity that we have. I do got to ask on Kirk Cousins though, because he's sitting on your IR right now. Are you expecting him to come back, or
no? I wasn't using it for anything else, and I thought it would be funny just to kind of let him limp along with the team. Make sure he gets a ring at the end of the year, hopefully. I did get a funny injury update the other day. It said that he'd gotten like his cast removed or something like that. There was some kind of injury progress, which I thought was funny. They're still doing that for a guy that's 100% out for the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, who knows, right? If we see Aaron Rodgers come back, maybe we see Kirk come back if the Vikings somehow make it. But Josh Dobbs has been actually pretty solid for them. So I don't know.
He has been, yeah. He gave me a scare last week. He almost beat me. That would have been poetic, I guess.
But yeah, seriously, that
he had like a head start on Kirk, though.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I don't know. It's curious. I'm really curious to see if Rodgers does end up coming back. We'll see what happens. But I want to touch on some big news for you. And obviously, it's been a little more than a month now. Congratulations, by the way, on adding a new assistant manager to the squad.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about the impact of having a mini co-pilot and how that's been so far?
Initially I thought it would be a lot more helpful than it is. I don't know that like the late night tinkering has really benefited the team. If anything, it's been detrimental. I'm not thinking straight at 3 in the morning when so the extra hours aren't always a good thing. Sometimes you just gotta put it down and just ride with what you got. And I think I've overthought some things maybe late night that I end up maybe reversing before game time, and sometimes maybe I don't get back to the phone quick enough. But yeah.
Have you had any thoughts that maybe you're working, not working, but you're living hours similar to what an actual NFL head coach maybe working? Some
Yeah,
of these guys are workaholics out there.
they really are. Yeah, I do feel like I'm sleeping in the office sometimes, and you kind of run out of things to look at on your phone at a certain point. So I find myself scrolling through week 12, week 14 projections, stuff like that. Definitely information overload at some point.
Well, on a more serious note, we obviously have a good portion of the league that is reaching a more serious or more advanced portion of their 20s, 30s, and starting to get to a similar point as you, where they're starting to consider having a child and then adding to the squad. Any advice for people who are considering pursuing that path thus far?
If you take your fantasy seriously, I would advise against it. So I doubt to see a lot of this league follow my footsteps anytime soon, given how seriously this league is taken for most of us. But no, it's been great. Maybe not conducive for fantasy, but I highly recommend it to the rest of the league.
Good. Glad to hear that, and glad things are going well so far. And again, congratulations. You mentioned scrolling through week 10, week 12 projections. I think you're honestly probably 2 wins away from a playoff spot, from like locking one up. I don't want you to quote me on that. I've got your remaining matchups as Strickland Propane, Vic Vinegar, a matchup against me, and then Mike's Lucky Charm to end the season. There's obviously one L in there, but you feel confident about winning the rest?
I'm looking through. There's been so much parity this year, and I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like I've gotten through the worst of my bye weeks. I think the bye weeks go through like something crazy, like week 14. And
yeah,
no, I'm saying that I've done all this research, but I haven't really looked into who's. I'm hoping there's some bye weeks on the other side of the fence coming up for me. But yeah, you never know. I'm feeling good at 6-4. I'm starting to separate myself from the pack a little bit, but I could get drugged back down by Strickland Propane this week, so we'll see. I think there's a lot of parity, and as we come down to the wire, it'll be pretty interesting.
I will say you've had something of a battle this year as well, and I think that's a credit to where you sit in the standings. I mean, you have the second most points against, only behind Strickland Propane, who just seems to get lit up every week. But
yeah, it's crazy.
You come out on top, sitting at 6-4. Like that's usually not the case. So it's more credit to kind of the manager and your performance thus far.
I've had some close wins. Last week felt like I kind of got lucky and maybe got away with one. I think Jason Myers gave me like 21 points and ended up winning by 6. So, I mean, that right there is pretty fortunate. But, you need stuff like that to happen, to, break your way to make the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Steely Pete's sitting there at 6-4 with you, and he had a 67-point win or something earlier this year. So,
yeah,
sometimes that's all it takes is a couple lucky ones to get you over the hump.
For sure, absolutely.
So, looking at the standings here, you got to take a stand. These Acers ahead of you. You got to make a prediction right now. Outside of yourself, who do you think is the favorite to take home the title?
You're talking about points against. I'm kind of looking through the points for. That should be the kind of like an indicator of, who's had the best season. And, Steve's been up there first, like pretty much the majority or pretty much the whole season, I think. And then Sam is sneaky putting up a lot of points for that 500 record. And, playing him this week, he made a big trade. And I don't know, obviously I'm biased, but I feel like there's been a couple times where a big trade has happened, and then I play one of those players the following week. And I don't know enough to whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I am not looking forward to playing Etienne on Sunday now. So we'll see.
What was your take on that trade, just out of curiosity?
It was Etienne, and then who was the receiver? Amon-Ra?
Yeah, Amon-Ra, St. Brown on the other side.
Yeah. I feel like I'm always partial to RBs, especially as we get later in the season. Like, there's going to start to be some like weird weather games. I know St. Brown plays in a dome, so that'll kind of mitigate that a little bit. But yeah, I think Etienne is probably the better player. But they're both really good, so it kind of comes down to the roster construction. And if you're asking for a favorite, like, I know Diggs has been kind of not great lately. Mahomes has been having kind of a weird season, but I think Sam's looking pretty good. Although,
yeah, I will.
All right,
if Mahomes ever turns it on, like, I feel like Sam's been working with a super down year for Mahomes, probably the Matt Nagy effect, which Chicago Bears fans know so well. But if he ever turns it around, I mean, I think Sam's team could be pretty good.
Yeah, it's a little bit scary to see him with the second most points, and then Mahomes having kind of a mediocre season. Like, that could turn around very quickly.
I'm just sorry. I just caught a glance. I think Joe Burrow might have been headed to the locker room, so it could be bad news for the Dizasters. Maybe open up a little advantage for you in the stretch run here. But he's dragging off. I don't know what's wrong with him.
The old 3 quarterback strategy is going to start becoming hot in the streets. Everyone's going to be doing it.
Apparently, we need depth there. But who would have thought, right? Who would have thought?
Right.
All right, so we talked about the top end of the standings. Let's talk about the bottom end, and I want to take a little bit different approach to this. Obviously you got Cookie Boy United down there at 3-7. He's a favorite for finishing last. Everyone knows that. But yes. Let's flip that script a little bit here and say that you have the personal ability to ensure one person loses the rest of their games. Who are you taking?
Like, who would I just force to lose the league if I could?
Yeah, I mean, like, they might not even lose because Cookie Boy could lose all 4. But if you pick anyone else, like, who would you basically say, all right, you get 4 losses out of your record, and that's your next 4 weeks?
I mean, it's not who I think is going to. It's who if I could just pick anyone, right?
Yeah. You have the actual ability to make them drop 4 straight games.
Naz is coming off that championship, and I think he enjoys playing the heel role so much that I think it would just be fitting for him to come in last after reaching the mountaintop last year.
I think that would be a fun one. I'll tell you, we're gearing up. I'm hoping to get him and Mr. Cookie Boy on this podcast in the coming weeks as we get down to the end. And who knows, if we get nice catch Blanco Nino down there as well, maybe we'll do a little trial and tribulation session with the 3 of them. See how they're feeling. I think could make for some interesting content down there. But Anyway, Jack, thank you so much for hopping on today. We got the trade deadline coming up in 2 days. Any last thoughts for me on that? Anything you're targeting or want to broadcast to the league?
The phone lines are open. I know I said I've said no to some trades already, but we'll see if we can make some moves and try to get ready for the playoffs here.
Well, maybe there's a deal out there brewing for you, and maybe there's a deal out there brewing for me too. I don't know. We'll see. But thanks again for hopping on. And once again, best of luck in the future. Best of luck, everything on the family side and also the league. Maybe this is the year you take home the title. If it gets down to it and it comes down to the last few teams and you're up there, man, I think I'll be rooting for you, rooting for the dark horse.
I appreciate that. You're doing a great job with the podcast. Thank you for having me on.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the FTTC podcast. Best of luck in the upcoming Week 11 matchups. We've had some excitement thus far. Mark Andrews going down, Joe Burrow going down. Seems like some Thursday night ballers could be on the hook for a shotgun, myself included. But either way, we look forward to recapping this week. I'm your host, Jason Stakewitz. Until next time.